Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting.
Hello, horror fans! Normally on this channel we talk about horror movies, but not today. Today we're talking about horror video games. In particular, we're talking about one of the most underrated horror video games ever made, Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem. Remember this one? Well, it's possible you might, but odds are it likely slipped under your radar. Released in 2002, developed by Silicon Knights and published by Nintendo for their Gamecube console, Eternal Darkness was a rare move for Nintendo. In fact, it was the first M-rated game ever published by the company, a surprising choice for a brand long associated with family-friendly content. And on the surface, it might have looked like a standard survival horror title. Something not unlike a Resident Evil or Silent Hill game. Fixed camera angles, tank-style controls, resource management, zombie-like enemies. You could be forgiven for thinking it was a Resident Evil ripoff, which at the time was seen as the gold standard for survival horror. But Eternal Darkness wasn't content to just imitate. This was a game that wanted to mess with you. The story begins in the year 2000. You start playing as Alexandra Roivas, who returns to her grandfather Edward's isolated Rhode Island mansion after he's brutally murdered. While investigating his death, she discovers a hidden room, and inside it, a strange book known as the Tome of Eternal Darkness. The tome chronicles centuries of encounters with an ancient supernatural force dating back to ancient Persia, and learns that every person who crosses its path suffers for it. As Alex continues reading the tome, the game shifts perspectives across multiple time periods. Each chapter follows a different character tied to the artifact, and the deeper Alex digs into the tome's history, the more her sanity begins to unravel. But what makes this game different? Because, yeah, on the surface, it is survival horror, but it stands apart in a few key ways. First of all, the tome leans heavily into cosmic horror. There's clear Lovecraftian influence in both the visuals and mythology. Ancient gods, incomprehensible forces, humanity dwarfed by something vast and indifferent. Second, the shifting time periods keep the experience constantly fresh. One chapter might drop you into 1st century Rome, the next into a cathedral in medieval France, the next into modern-day America. It creates variety without losing narrative cohesion. Add in solid puzzle designs, some light RPG mechanics, and a balance of combat, magic, and exploration, there was rarely a dull moment. But of course, the game's most famous feature, or possibly infamous feature, is the sanity meter.
This isn't really happening!
Because in this game, you don't just manage health and magic, you manage your mind. Every encounter with enemies, every disturbing discovery, every brush with the unnatural drains your sanity, and the lower it goes, the more the game starts to lie to you. Hallways bend at impossible angles, statues watch you, paintings bleed, your character's head might randomly fall off. Sometimes you'll see enemies that aren't even there.
This can't be happening!
And if your sanity drops far enough, the game even breaks the fourth wall. It might pretend your controller disconnected, it might mess with the volume, or most famously, it might give you a blue screen of death error screen, making you think your console just crashed. In 2002, that was pretty diabolical. The horror isn't just in the monsters, it's in destabilizing the player. You're not just controlling someone losing their sanity, it challenges your own sanity. Now, it's not a perfect game. The combat is functional, but hardly revolutionary. It can feel repetitive, and the tank controls, which were the standard for the time, definitely feel dated, especially after Resident Evil 4 redefined the genre a few years later. Most of the puzzles are clever, though some feel like you're searching for a needle in a haystack. And while the sanity effects are novel and keep the game interesting, once you've experienced them, they do kind of lose their novelty. But these are minor blemishes on an otherwise bold and ambitious game. So what happened? Why is this game not a classic, and why did it not spawn a bajillion sequels? Well, critics overall praised the game, but commercially, it flopped. Fewer than 500,000 copies were sold, making this game a significant financial failure. Plans for a sequel were scrapped, Silicon Knights eventually went bankrupt in 2013, and any attempts at a spiritual successor fizzled out. So why didn't it find its audience? Maybe because it was a GameCube exclusive. The console, fairly or not, had a family-friendly image, and an M-rated psychological horror game may have felt out of place. Or maybe it wasn't marketed aggressively enough. Or perhaps it was simply too strange, too ahead of its time even. It's become something of a cult classic over the years, but never truly got the attention it deserved. To this day, it's never received a proper remaster or modern re-release. It's never even appeared on Steam or Nintendo's eShop, and that's a huge shame. In fact, the only official way to play it is on the original GameCube hardware. If you ever do get the chance to play it, whether you have a GameCube collecting dust and happen to stumble across a copy on eBay or used GameShop, it's absolutely worth your time, because Eternal Darkness proves something important. Horror games don't just have to scare you, they can destabilize you, they can weaponize the medium itself. Because frankly, gaming could use more psychological horror, and few games have ever done it better than Eternal Darkness. Alright, thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and leave us a comment. Let us know if you remember Eternal Darkness, or if there are any other horror games you'd like to see covered. And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more horror content. We'll see you next time.